Hello, beautiful, beautiful people. We're back again for another gorgeous episode of Age of Awæcnian, Soulful Souls Unveiled. And the unveilings that happen with all of our amazing guests and just diving into their essence, their story, their insights always inspires us. And Flea, I know we love these deeper connections and these cool conversations we get to have, right?
I love the way it kind of brings like another piece to the puzzle. Every single time we meet with somebody new or like we just have a conversation, even just with ourselves, we just have a conversation. It's like, oh, okay. And you just literally brought the puzzle piece to me. And I love how that unfolds because those little puzzle pieces, it's like, okay, I understand this now. These connections really are valuable in putting the whole puzzle together. When we talk about mission and like who it is to be us, why we're here on this lovely earthly school doing the things that we're doing, and it really is that coming together. It's creating the picture with all of the little puzzle pieces that are our external reality, the people that we live with, the things that we perceive and we see around us. It's so beautiful to have that awareness and to have that connection to so many people now.
Amazing. And these reflections that others give us in sharing their story, then adding to those puzzle pieces, it just is so profound. Sometimes the insights that we gain from others. And if only we could talk more like this on this level, and maybe when we do more of these things, the world gets to change because it invites more of that authenticity in those genuine conversations. So our next beautiful guest I met through another friend of ours who we've had before on a beautiful summit last year with us. And beautiful Kylie Marie was one of those pieces in the puzzle when I was like seeking connections to hear more about stories and things that I was diving into. And we just had a really beautiful chat, and I got to hear more of her motherhood story. And I know today the energetics and the intuitive work that Kylie Marie brings is so, so phenomenal. And she is the founder of Intuitive Legacy and is a homeschooling mum of two and a published author. She helps heart-centered mystics become shadow work and psychic practitioners. My goodness, this vision, this impact that you have in like tapping into the inner world is so amazing. And I'm so excited we get to talk about the mystical things. Welcome, Kylie Marie.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so beautiful to connect with you all. And yeah, just deeply grateful to be here today.
So beautiful. And I
Thank
know
you.
we've spoken about this, but for beautiful Flea and the listeners, we're just going to dive straight into the mystical realms because I know your journey, your life is unique to you and people's, I suppose, stories, their unveilings of their gifts can, we've all got the gifts, but some of them remember earlier on and others come a little bit later. I'd love to know, as a child, were these gifts something that were really natural for you?
They were, looking back on it, they were really quite natural, but if we don't have people to support us to navigate what we're feeling or to feel comfortable to share, um, we can put it in the backseat corner of our life and we can just go about life, I guess, with our eyes closed and not be really awakened to the gifts that we have within us. So as a child, I would walk into a room and I could feel and I could know what other people were feeling, what they've gone through, the masks that they were wearing to put on a front in people. Like it was, and I just thought everyone was like that. I just thought it was normal and natural as well. Like, everyone must be able to sense the energies, and I never really questioned it. So yeah, it was something as a child that really, really developed, but through going through motherhood and teenage years, it was sort of something that I didn't really look into. I was very interested in this world. I was going to all the things, and it was through that, I guess, that awakening of, I can create my own reality and to decondition from a lot of things, that they really started to come back online again. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I feel it's the same. It's very similar to many people. Yeah.
I know Flea's, she's just got a delay. So I know I can sense she wants something to say. And I was like, oh, just wait. Because I know Flea's very similar. We talk about these things a lot. I'd love for you to share, Flea. We'll just wait in the patience. Oh, you're muted now. Oh, the joys of tech.
Yeah.
I love tech. It is so fabulous. I was going to say, yes, I am very similar, except I see people's inner child. And I didn't realize that at first. Like I thought it was just um, just the way that I visually perceive their features sort of thing. And it's sort of come about a bit more as the little traits and the little quirky things that were the inner child. And I was like, now I understand, because that's where I guess my mentality is, in that younger mindset. So I'm always sort of going back to, where can I find my little friends, and I see that in people.
Yeah, that's very cool. I love that. I've never heard of that before. And I love like hearing people's stories and
Mhm.
how they come about. It's very cool. Very cool.
These beautiful gifts, like I know people can break them down into different clairs, different ways of
Mm,
sensing the world, feeling. I think for me, that sense of feeling, I think it's claircognizance, where it's like that
mm,
knowing has always been there as a child, but not being able to trust it because of my upbringing or because of situations or contexts. And just feeling like, growing up, I always felt like the black sheep of my family, and just questioning and testing my mother all the time, and questioning the world, and it was only probably within the last 4 years, where coming back to my body, coming back to the wisdom within here, that a lot of those gifts have been activated in so many ways. And I feel like this age of Aquarius, when people are now starting to question, become aware, starting to notice things, whether it's within themselves or their children, sparking curiosity. And
mm,
I know, Flea, yourself and I have this real passion as well for understanding our youth, understanding our children, and you've homeschooled your kids. And I suppose, what have you noticed in this journey of motherhood, and then also seeing the gifts and the beauty of what your children have within themselves, and also have
mm.
reminded you about what's within you?
I come across a quote last night that your second child is the child that you never got to live out. And my daughter, she's very much like that. She's a Pisces sun and a Scorpio moon, and she's a Leo rising. So blending those things in, it's just like, we bring in the watery, fiery emotions, and it's crazy. But, just allowing them to be a little bit more outspoken and to question things, and to question me as a mother too, which is like unheard of. And it's been uncomfortable, but I hope that I'm paving a different yellow brick road to their own wizardry, where they know themselves a little bit more when they're going out into the world. Like, they're only 12 and 9, so they're still quite young. Um, and it's allowed me to get to know them too a little bit better, and to, respect their own individual needs. My son, he's very heady. He's a double air, so I'm very aware that it takes him a while to shut off, and his mind is constantly ticking. Whereas if someone had put him, labeled him at school as being, two in his head, not down here, not, learning in a normal way, like it could have easily just been labels upon labels in that world, and it's not something that I'm overly comfortable with. But yeah, I hadn't planned on homeschooling. It was never my intention. I was that mum that couldn't wait to put them into school and I'd have some me time again. But the world shut down and things came up, and this is just not for me anymore. It doesn't align with my values whatsoever, the things that were coming out. And that's what really set our journey off into different parenting styles. So it's been a learning curve, especially being highly sensitive and, having someone always in my aura, has been challenging. I'm not going to sugarcoat it whatsoever, but yeah, I hope I'm doing the right thing and I feel that I am, but sometimes doubt creeps in, right? Like, you know,
Mm.
yeah.
It's meant to be. It's meant to be.
Sorry.
It's the only. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. It's the only real way to
Yeah.
to to go throughout this life. It's if we knew the
Mm,
answers, we wouldn't be sitting there in contemplation. And I love that you said the
yeah.
second child is the life that we wanted to live out, because when you stop and you think about that second child, or what that second child would even represent in your life,
Mm,
my daughter is pretty much the rule breaker, and
yeah.
she wanted to walk early, so she was walking at like 8.5 months, and she decided when she wanted to stop being fed, and she decided when she wanted to move out, and she decided, like, she just made all the decisions. And I'm like,
Yeah.
wow. I like the minute you said that big aha moment, and like I said, those pieces of the puzzles, it's like, yes, she so
Yeah.
is the little girl in me that just wants to go, no, I want to break the rules, and that's not the way it has to be. But
Yeah.
I guess it is something that we almost teach without realizing we teach it
Mm,
in just our behaviors and the way we speak.
yeah. Yeah. Parenting is a journey, isn't it? And it's like sometimes I look at her and I'm like, wow, I just wish I had that like tenacity to just be like, that's what I want, and that's just what I want, and it's just what I want, mum. There's no
Oh,
there's no second guessing. It's like, and
yeah.
I want to develop that within them because your psychic senses and your intuitive senses, like they're a little different, but if you have a strong connection with your intuition yourself, the rest is history,
Mm,
and it's something that I want to allow them to trust within themselves. Like I'll check in and be like, you know, get a feel for their answers on why. Only because I want to understand them a little bit more, but I'm like, yeah, okay, cool. That's
accept
what it
it.
is.
I love that piece about I just want what I want because I want it. It's a beautiful thread from one of our earlier chats this morning about, you know, stepping into your desires and your wants and the shadow parts of ourselves that suppress that over time, particularly I suppose, our older generations have learnt how to suppress, not only just in this lifetime, but past lifetimes or, from looking at lineage work as well. And so I
Mhm.
feel like this beautiful thread of learning from our youth and our young people, and there's that inner child wisdom that comes out that you've
Mm,
both touched upon, and tapping into that wild want, desire, the freedom, the like, I'm just here being in this essence, and for us to rewild again and to tap
mm,
back into ourselves. And I know, Kylie Marie, you also dive into the shadow work with women that you work with, and I know Flea and I have spent lots of conversations with guests, with ourselves, with our families, talking about these parts of ourselves that are desiring, wanting also to be felt and heard and acknowledged. I'd love to know your insights on, I suppose, when we start diving deeper into this shadow part of ourselves, how important that is in the psychic development and the intuitive side to bring harmony and balance with the light and the shadow.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that question. So I work with a lot of my passion lies within the lineage work, within generational healing. And so my personal journey was the clearing out and understanding these core wounds that were playing out. And I noticed a really strong thread within my maternal line, that this whole unwanted thing. When I did some work around it, it was not mine to carry, but it was like a learnt, I don't want to say belief, but it was like a learnt wounding that just it just stuck, and it permeated through my whole life. And so I had to work on that part. And with the shadows and how you brought out the desires of, we want what we want and being okay with that and being in the light. So shadow work is also dark and it's golden. So there's being okay with, our sensuality, and it's being okay with our confidence, and it's being okay with playing the victim role sometimes, and it's okay to be judgmental sometimes. That we're all human. And so in the spiritual world, when I first, went down this path, and I was like doing mindset work and I was doing affirmations, and I'm like, I'm still not feeling the same. What is going on? Um, and so when I found shadow work and when I went into training for shadow work, it really uncovered a deep compassion for the human experience, because we can get really stuck in the shame spiral and the shame loop for the ways that we are thinking, for the things that we might do in the heat of the moment. And so being able to embody shadow work and to be able to, I guess, deeply question yourself and to understand why that specific part is ruling the roost, so to speak. It really helps. I don't want to say clear the channel, but it just helps like unstuck your, the tree roots, Let's say you've got a drain and you've got all these tree roots coming in, and this tree root is a core wound, this one is a judgmental piece, this one is a shame piece or guilt or whatever it is. If they're threaded so much in our internal body, how is intuition and how is your psychic development skills going to come through when we are still holding on to those things, and they are essentially dictating our every move? So a part of the work, and I'm currently moving into teaching rather than facilitating, so I'll be doing more teaching than facilitating. So it's just allowing these parts to be there with no shame attached. And if we speak into those parts, I get really vulnerable and letting people see the darkest parts of you. And that takes a while to build up trust, right? For someone to get to know you on that level. It starts to dissipate, and you can change the energy when you go into doing shadow work. And so, yeah, long story and for probably a really short answer, but yeah, it's just changing that relationship you have with these parts and with the energy that you have within you to be able to connect in with your intuition. So I hope that helps.
I was looking at the cards when we started. I always do a little oracle pull before we start any of our podcast, and it was really a weird mix. And the way that they unfolded was like a good, bad, good, bad, good, bad the whole way through. And I think you just sum that up with the shadow work that you were talking about, like the triumphant success or had the waiting game underneath it, like when you feel like you're stuck and
Mm,
you're stagnant and those tree roots are just ever present, and it doesn't matter how much you tell yourself I'm happy, it's fine, that idea of
mm,
success isn't present, but it's like interweaved, and it's like all of these cards are in like pairs or groups. They all kind of fell out
mm,
that way, and I was like, okay, I'll just leave them how they are, because I know not to mess around too much with the way things fall. And yeah, looking at it, I was like, I can't see where this story unfolds. Like, I feel like Kylie Marie's like a really, really big in the shadow, or she's just had some really tough challenges. And even when you said with the motherhood, like it with homeschooling, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna
mm,
sugarcoat it for you. It's like that knowingness deep down that we all have those challenges. We all have that darkness that's
mm,
present, but straight away, like having to find that justification almost. It's
mm,
like I wanted to ask you, it's like the intentionality behind like letting people know that, like where does that come from for you, like as someone that's homeschooling? Like I know so many people are in such a turmoil about where to go, what to do, pretty much that stuck in
yeah,
the waiting game of like waiting for
mm,
something to happen. Can something just
mm,
happen, whether it's good or bad or whatever it is?
mm,
There's more to that level of like intention when we want to be in that darkness or want to be aware of that darkness.
mm. I think a lot of people, when we go into shadow work, it can be an uncomfortable experience and bring up many sensations in the body that people don't want to feel. And it's not necessarily um, intentionally searching. So I feel when we intentionally go searching, the ego is going to like put you in a whole different direction. And I want to share a bit of a quick story. I was one in control a lot, and sometimes still have those controlling tendencies. And it's like the more that we are trying to control the outcome, the further away the answer's going to be. And so I spent maybe a good year being connected in with the nature in my backyard. I had a backyard full of wildlife and insects and fruiting trees, and I really had to practice patience, because the passion fruit tree would only, bloom once a year, and same as the mandarin tree. And so when we are, trying to rush things, it can put that feeling in of like comparison and not good enough. And I should be somewhere different. And I should be experiencing something different. And I should be feeling something different. But the slower I got and the more intentional I got with connecting in with nature, the less I compared myself to others, to anybody else. I'm not saying it doesn't come up, but I'm just a little bit more aware of it now. I've changed my energy and my relationship with it. I know when to stop and go and do something different or have a break. Yeah, so I
Mm,
hope that helped. That answers your question.
yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful. It's such a powerful insight to remind ourselves of actually how simple it is to just stop. But for some of us, it can be so freaking hard as well, in
Mm,
that polarity of stopping and having stillness to sit with yourself. And nature is
yeah.
such a powerful tool to harmonize that mind, the monkey mind that we can have sometimes, and just to like notice what's happening in your backyard. Like I just went outside before, and our lemon trees are about to, burst this spring. All the flowers are there, the bees are buzzing, and just to
Mm,
notice like even the chickens making noise and Flea going, oh, they're about to get ready to lay, Marie. I'm like, oh, okay. And it's so powerful to just like look at nature, to allow then the freedom within your heart, within yourself, to come online, so that your intuition, which is connected to Mother Earth, connected to the cosmos, gets to then come more into the body. And I feel this piece around the spiritual world. I see, like yourself, there's lots of mindset pieces, and the mind is important. We all have a mind for a reason, and it is a beautiful tool. And I feel sometimes when I see coaches and facilitators and mentors, it's all about the mindset. And then it's like, are you actually really embodied in that though? Are you actually living that truly, authentically? And this piece around authenticity and spirit coming in, like you feel people that are actually embodied and living in it. They're just magnetic. There's just something about them. And for those that are still discerning, sometimes there are people that say the things, but perhaps are not so much. So what's your, I suppose, perspective on, there's this boom in spirituality where people, are tapping into various beautiful methodologies and teachings and things. And yeah, I'd love to know your insights on this piece around being embodied in the practices and the things that you do and say, versus people that are just like, you just have to be ahead of the game. Yes. And there's also deeper layers to it. I'd love to know your insights on this development in this world as people are diving into it.
Yeah. It's such a beautiful world to be a part of. Like, my life has completely changed, and it started from mindset work. Like, I had to create the safety in the mind for it to go down into my body. And there is so much noise out there. It's for people that are highly sensitive to the noise, we have to really be aware of what we're consuming. And this is sort of where I have become unapologetic in unfollowing or no longer vibing with people that I once did, because I have to trust my body's sensations of like, this is just not for me. This person is not for me anymore. Their teachings are no longer for me anymore. And I'm deeply grateful and humble for their lessons and their teachings and their guidance and their support. But, if I feel someone changing into a direction that necessarily doesn't feel good for me, I'll unfollow, and I'll also inquire as to why, because it can just be a shadow playing out. It can just be a trigger point that I'm triggered by what they're sharing because I'm not there yet, or it's what I want to experience. And so I've got, my little girl's having a little tanty, and it's like, um, knowing yourself and having that deeper awareness to understand as to why I'm triggered by them, why I'm judging them. Because essentially, with shadow work, is when we are judging someone, there's a part of us that we're judging as well. Whether, money, for example, is a big, huge topic in the spiritual community. And some of us are experiencing a lot of money and some of us aren't. And so if we are judging someone for like sharing, their bank statements and things like that, we can go into judging ourselves because we don't have that yet. Or we're judging ourselves because we want that. And so I feel that there's a separation in the spiritual community of like giving your gifts away for free, overcharging, or, not charging enough. And it's a, it's a big topic, and I don't know where it's going to go, but it's like trusting your intuition is just really what I want to land on. Like, if it doesn't feel good for you, take yourself out of the arena for a little bit and do some shadow work around it. Ask those deeper questions. When you ask those deeper questions, tune into your body. Where is that living within your body? And start to do some embodiment pieces around that. Because, like you brought up the embodiment, if I'm not doing the work, how can I expect someone else to? If I'm not willing to go into certain depths, how can I take someone else to? And I feel that's a really, really important piece on the embodiment. But it's like I can take people to their depths and I can sit. I've been told so many crazy things. People have shared so many crazy things. I've witnessed a lot. And I necessarily wouldn't go to that depth as well, but I can hold it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard spirituality described as each individual soul's version of authenticity. And
Yeah.
when I heard it from there, it's like, yes, okay, I get that. And then in society, it confused me. I was like, well, that's not really what I'm witnessing. That's not really what I'm feeling in that community. And it was more that there was that cross transfusion, or this fusion of what you do with your awareness of spirituality, or your awareness of your passion, and how that's driven. And I believe that's what Marie was talking about with the embodiment. It's like, okay, yeah, we all have our belief patterns. Every single one of them are right and correct and true for us. We do have certain cross points where our themes will interact or intersect, and it's in those intersections that we get that resonance. And that's where we build these little communities. Okay, yeah, I resonate with you on this, this, and this. Maybe not 5, 6, 7, 8 over here, but for 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah, we're together. And because of that, we can create a community around those 4 understanding key points. The problem is when now I've seen a lot of people start pushing, well, if you're not a vegan, if you're eating this, if you're doing that, if you're not sleeping, then you're not spiritual. And it's like, hang on a sec. To truly be in it is to understand that it is solely individual, that it is 100% for the uniqueness of the individual experience reality.
Yeah.
I've got a lovely echo now happening, which is great. But yeah, it's just to step into that depth of, I can actually see your experience. I can
Yeah.
see where your spirituality is leading you down those paths. That's where we get to help and heal. And the value around money, well, that's our profession. That's what we do with it. It's got nothing to do with spirituality. Spirituality is the inside. It's the how we share it and love. And until we work out that we're valuable, then we can't really put a price on that. And we shouldn't be putting a price on people anyway.
Yeah. It's like we don't pay for things with chickens and gold and things that, like, we don't, it's not that way anymore. You know, we have to have money to put a roof over our heads, to pay for food, to clothe our kids, and that's just how society is right now. You know, it's a big topic.
It is a big topic. And it's interesting, like this piece around spirituality and abundance, and that wealth consciousness piece around our souls, our spirit are eternally wealthy and abundant. And like you said, Flea, there's no price to put on it. And yet in this physical 3D, we do need those things, you know, and it's that balance of the material world and understanding self. And I feel like coming back to those deeper questions that I know both Flea asked me really deep questions about stuff that I haven't thought about. I'm like, oh, okay, let me go sit with that for a moment. And if we all allowed that time to question and go within, I think there's a point at some point where the questioning is still important, but you don't need to question as much, because then there's this knowingness and acceptance of, like, your essence and who you be at the core that gets to come more online. And this piece around, abundance and wealth and spirituality, it is all one as well and separate. And this is like the duality. And this is the fun game we get to have in
Yeah.
conversations, right? In the light, the shadow,
Mm,
sun, the moon, feminine, masculine, yin and yang, and it all being okay, and learning how that piece around non-judgment, I think, is such a big lesson for ourselves and also our ego, to befriend our ego, tame, or however we want to call it, because that's where the judgments come in, the stories come in, because soul, spirit doesn't judge. It just loves and is and wants the best for you, and it may be firm at times, but it's still that loving force. But to notice that shadow self and come into union of like, well, this is a human experience, right?
mm,
Mm.
yeah, absolutely.
And I love like this piece that we as adults, as bridge makers, as parents, as leaders in our fields, we then get to role model that for our kids, because then
Mm,
it doesn't have to be as hard. And yes, there will still be challenges, but the next generation and the generations to come will get to shift and be more of themselves quicker in a way, with divine
mm.
patience in that balance. But yeah, I'd love to know your vision, I suppose, for the work that you do with your clients, and also you being a mum and this guardianship that you have with your family and leading in this way. Like, what's your vision for your family, for yourself, for your future, and the work that you are doing now?
I haven't really thought about it as much. I sort of have been just in the present moment, I guess, as such. Mm, for me personally, I have a big vision around, writing more books and being around a campfire or being around a fire in my backyard with my herbs, with the kids, with, like-minded people. I don't necessarily have a big vision of, a mansion, yachts, that type of thing. I'd give me a cottage in the forest and I want to go foraging with my kids. Writing my books and teaching is where my vision is, and just growing old with my partner. I don't have a huge thing. I am a very quiet person and I'm more solitary than not. So I love my inner peace. Um, and that's really where I see the vision. I don't get into a huge amount of vision quests as such, because I don't want to control it. I don't want to control it. So I'm just following the threads of my intuition and trusting my guidance and trusting my body in a way that has never really been done in my family history before. I want to feel empowered as a woman like my lineage has never felt before. And I want to teach my kids how to be empowered and to be humbled and to care for themselves and know that in a way that they don't have to rely solely on somebody else. And I know that comes from core wounding, and I get that. But I want them to be self-sufficient and standing strong. But I've got to go first. So
Mm.
it's all a learning, really.
Yeah. There's a few little, I guess how Marie said before with the duality, that you
Mm,
always have these word choices as well. Like you said,
yeah.
you don't want to try and control that outcome. I've heard it as um, any future expectation is future resentment. So by having an
Mm,
expectation, it's the
mm,
potential for future resentment. because by expecting something to happen for you is trying to control the outcome. And in the control, that resentment can either be it doesn't turn out according to your plan, or you
Yeah.
miss the opportunities that could have led to better.
Yeah.
And that also goes with the last one, which when we were talking about judgment. Judgment, every single judgment holds a personal confession. And when we
Mm.
look at every single judgment as, okay, well, what does this say about me? And it could be your values. Yeah, I definitely disagree. That's the wrong way to live life. And that really hones in on your soul's mission to not live that way and to create
Mm.
realities where that doesn't happen. It's also that a bit more that connection to what was I talking about? I lost it. It's gone. I'm not meant to say. All good.
Trust the intuition and
Mm.
the moments. But yeah, those insights that you shared, Flea, are just so spot on. Like, and this is a surrender. This is surrendering
Mm.
to the divine and soul and spirit. And I love that. I love that this question, then you're like, I don't have vision. But then you went into this vision of this really beautiful life in a way of like just releasing control and
Yeah.
sharing. And well, there's beauty in the simplicity and
Mm.
honoring the role of what you want to live out and setting that example for your kids to then, be the best versions of themselves. And that is enough. And
Mm.
other people's journeys will be different, and that's okay. And I love that. I
Mm.
love that you went there too, because, again, it's allowing it to be said and heard and witnessed, and then surrendering and go, okay, let's see what else
Yeah.
happens.
Yeah. I just feel like at the moment I'm just sort of in co-creation with my intuition, with high guidance, and just with my body. I think is just where I want to be right now. And I'm just trusting the threads of it and putting things in motion and just working on myself as I go. Yeah.
Mm.
Mm.
And that
It's the
presence you
depth of
mentioned,
thought.
being present. Oh, sorry, Flea, you go.
No, you're right. I was just going to say it's the depth of thought as well that goes into, well, that's enough for me.
Mm.
That's what I want. Like,
Yeah.
obviously things can change and things can, get better at any
Mm.
point in time. But just to go, that's where my heart would be content. That's where I would be
Mm.
at my satisfactory level. If every day could be like this, that's great. And that
Mm.
intentionality of living your life with, okay, better can happen, worse can happen, but either way, that's kind of like a vision. It is like a goal to a degree, but it's
Mm.
it's the simplicity of it. It's just like, this is the way I know how to live life, and that's okay for now.
Mm. Yeah.
And that presence, that deep
Yeah.
presence that you were saying, like there's an eternal now that we can think about
Mm.
the future and we can worry about the past, but it's like you said, just being really present with your body, with the moment. And if all of us were
Mhm.
living in the present and being here with the people in front of us, with our family, with our emotions, with the feelings, with the crap, with the joy in the now, it's amazing what beauty comes from that.
Oh my God, so much. I sometimes think I should want more. I should want these bigger things. I have all these incredible gifts to take it far. And for me, my responsibility is more to myself and to my kids rather than to um, a lot of strangers. Like, I still want to have my school of teaching and I still want to have my shadow work practitioner training and I still want to take that far. But I'm also very aware that I don't want the weight of the world on top of me because I want to enjoy the moon. I want to enjoy the stars. I want to watch the birds and the clouds. And I don't need to be on psychedelics to be able to see the beauty of life and to see things crawling on leaves and to take in that essence. For me, I just do, I want to do that naturally.
Mm. Such a beauty in that, such a deep power in the now. And thank you for that reminder, because we can all do that now. And if you're listening in it can be just that simple of just being present, being in nature, being with your family, noticing the judgments, noticing the triggers, and breathing through it, shifting through your awareness and asking those deeper questions. Well, why? Why am I being triggered this way? Why am I questioning this? And, both you, Kylie Marie, and Flea have tapped into this intention. And if we're living more in that intention, intuition just gets to flow more fluidly so that we can make those aligned decisions.
It's
So, so
quietening
beautiful.
down. Yeah,
Slowing.
it's the quietening down and being comfortable quietening down. A lot of people are busy avoiding. So, yeah.
So true. And in that avoidance, procrastination, doing too many things. And I know, in my past experience, I am a go, go, go person, and that's part of my gift. But again, noticing the control pieces, noticing the people pleaser, noticing the past versions of myself of using that as a way to hide from that quietness, hide from myself. And if we don't listen to the threads, if we don't listen to the pieces that come along the way, then universe, source, God, goddess, wherever people, they're gonna remind you in other ways to stop
Yeah,
and be and quiet and just listen.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
We've had lots of guests that have described that as the feather, the brick, or the truck, which really stuck home for me because
Yes,
it's like, oh,
yes.
yes, we notice the feathers. They're like a light little tickle. They're very much like that
Yeah.
little thread. It's like, oh, I don't really like that, or oh, that feels wrong, or oh, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable. Whatever the feeling is, like we know it. I can think back on every like poor decision that I've made over my life, and it's like I knew beforehand. Like when you lend someone money and it's like, oh, they're not going to pay it back. I know it. Like you do within your soul, and then that level of like, oh, but I've got to trust, or I should do that. I've got as that society says, and you should give people a chance, and if you can help, you should, and all of those stories sort of come in, and you don't listen to that little tickle, that little feather, and you sort of go, okay, yeah, I'll give the benefit of the doubt, or I'll follow mum's, you know, rules or dad's rules or whatever those things are that are put in place that are contradictory to that feeling. You then get that brick and it's a little bit more like a thud. It's like, okay, well, now I've lent money to somebody and I've kind of lost the friendship as well because now I can't trust them, and I could have said something to begin with and it wasn't right for me and I didn't. And those scenarios, like you can feel as they unfold, and it's like, why didn't I listen to myself to begin with?
Mhm.
That confusion, that cycle that we all go through, like we know it. It's easy for
Yeah,
our body to then go into that egoic state and go, oh, just ignore it. Like you said in the beginning, Kylie Marie, it was like, oh, yes, it likes to tell us that we're wrong with those feelings, but really those feelings are right. They're there for a reason. They're there to
yeah,
highlight before we get to the Big Mac truck and all of a sudden you're
yeah,
out on the streets because you've given away your rent or something like that because you're just being nice and you can,
yeah,
and they'll give it back.
yeah, yeah. It's the comfortability that we have within ourselves to say no or to say yes. A lot of us, especially when you're highly sensitive and you're an empath, you don't want to let people down because you can just already see how it's going to end up. And so we have that savior complex. And sometimes we've got to shut that off and turn it inwards,
Mm. Yeah.
which is not
So
easy.
true.
Everyone talks about it, but it's not easy. And I think support in that is so important.
Mm. That leads me to my next question. People are tapping more deeply into their intuition. They're noticing that these moments, they're either choosing to listen and activate or not. What's your, I suppose, your bit of advice I think you said connection with people that can help and support you is one thing. But for those that are listening and their intuition is really, heightening, that maybe they're feeling more sensitive than what they used to be, shifts are happening in their lives. What's your bit of advice for folks that are awakening into their essence, their remembrances, their gifts, their intuition, and they're struggling to discern what is that versus the doubt?
Mm. Oh, there's so much I have to say around this. And the thing that's coming up is your nervous system is having a grounded nervous system. You're doing you're grounding on the ground, you're connecting in with your breath, doing breath work practices, doing meditation if that's your cup of tea, and finding what works for you to be able to strengthen your intuition. Cards are a beautiful way and such a simple way. The thing is we receive these messages and the guidance, but we're not trusting them. We're just fobbing them off as, as nothing. But as someone had mentioned, it's, the feather of the Mack truck. And so my invitation would be to start small. It would be to keep it simple. If you're wanting to develop your intuition that little bit better, start with the moments of the day, the silent whispers of simply what food does my body need today? And tuning in to that energy. And the more that we can trust those subtle whispers, it will get bigger. And we have to have patience with it. We all want to get to the end result of my intuition is so bang on all the time and we're going to mess up. It's going to be wrong sometimes. And so, yeah, start small. Make sure you're doing your energy work on yourself. And if you're highly sensitive, is clearing out energies you've picked up through the day or the night, morning and night. Sometimes it can seem like a lot, but sometimes in the beginning, when we're in the beginning phase, it's important to have a bit of a structural, ritual of a morning or a night. And then as you're feeling more confident and more trusting, you can loosen it a little bit. But that's my perspective, and that's what really helped me was, being quite routined with it in the beginning. And then I loosened it. So finding the ritual that worked for me and just going with the flow. Yeah.
I love that you said those two things, that finding what works for you, as well as allowing it to be released sometimes. And I feel like that's what we were talking about earlier with the spiritual groups and things. Well, if you're not meditating and you're not doing breath work, you're not doing it right. And I found that with a lot of the guidance I've been given, it's like, okay, do this, do that. And I was getting up early and I'd go do my meditation, I'd go do something else, and I'd go do, and the whole
Yeah.
time, I was forcing myself to do all these things. And I noticed that I naturally did it anyway. Like for me, my meditation is when I get dressed in the morning, the taking the time with my skincare, with my makeup, with my hair, but really being intentional with the color choices and the placement, but also talking to myself as I'm doing it, like going through those processes, asking the questions why of the thoughts and the chatter that's coming up, getting deeper with it. But that whole time I'm looking at myself and I'm immersed in the me that's creating it. And the whole time I'm like, oh, that's just me getting ready. I'm just getting ready. Like I just like makeup and I just, I even got to an egoic point where I was thinking that it was just because I liked looking at myself, and it's like, no, I don't. I really don't. That's not it at all. But I started thinking that maybe that's what I'm doing and I'm not even aware of it. But it was that process of slowing down and just going within. How do I feel right now? Like even like when I do my makeup, sometimes it's like I feel really bad and I put a lot more on. And I've noticed that I do that when I get dressed. It's like, especially if I have to go to work or something like that, and if I'm feeling really miserable, the colors on my eyes will be something really outrageous. It'll be something that people my age at school or, daytime jobs shouldn't wear, and all of those type of things. But I do it because in that moment of like creative play, it's like I just get to be me. And it's like I don't really care. Like the color brings that vibration out of me. It gets me into that state of mind where I can think in joy, and just the physical touch of the brushes and the sensation and all of that stuff. That's meditation. And I notice with my partner when he's in the garden or he's like watering the plants, it's like that's your thing. Like go and do that. Go and sit with the plants. Just hold like if that's your way to stop, like go do that thing. You'll feel it because you'll lose time with it. And I can spend a good couple of hours just in there just playing with colors and just playing with products just because I like the sensoriness of it. And that's your ritual. That's your thing. The shower at the end of the night to clear and to talk to yourself, or like whatever it is, it's part of your day already. It's just making it more intentional.
Yeah.
Love
And it's like developing that relationship with yourself because you're in your own aura.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I love that.
Such beautiful insights. And folks, if you're listening in, it's just as simple as that. Again, notice what brings you joy, notice what brings you calm, that inner peace that you were saying, Kelly Marie, of like, for me, when I'm dancing, just for me, something just lights a fire, lights in my heart, and I just get to feel whatever it is, the music. And again, breath work for me was like a pivotal tool to really anchor in to my nervous system. And for those that are listening, it will be beautiful for some, maybe not so much for others. It might be a bit more challenging, and that's okay. But we're all breathing. We're all breathing to live in this life. So remember, big belly breaths, folks. 70% of us breathe incorrectly in this world. So breathing deeply and exhaling out slowly. And I feel this theme of slowing things down is such a beautiful message, and allowing that divine patience to really be the teacher, even though we want speed and light and things to happen fast. It will, if you bring that patience, that slowness, and then you collapse time in that. Beautiful. So, Kylie Marie, if people would love to connect with you and find out more about your school and the shadow work you do, how can they do that? I mentioned it right at the beginning, but let us know how we can connect with you.
I'm probably a bit more interactive on Instagram at Intuitive Legacy, and I also have a podcast that has just been rebirthed, and you'll be able to find that on Spotify. Those are my two main platforms at the moment to connect in, if you choose to. Yeah.
Beautiful. I will have to check out your podcast for sure. Amazing. Oh, well,
Oh,
thank
it's
you.
very raw.
Oh, look, you got to start somewhere. Flea and I, we just did, this beautiful process of using Vimeo, Facebook, sharing it to our website and streaming it through there. That's how we choose to connect and share the beautiful insights, and, the reach connections with people around the world have just come to us in that really authentic, natural way, organic way, which has been really beautiful. And those that are listening, you got to start somewhere and just step into your courage and do the things that light you up. So I love that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, Kylie Marie. And folks, if you have loved this episode, give us some love hearts and tell us more about your key takeaways. And if you want to connect more with us on these amazing insights, Flea, there's a beautiful summit coming up in September, not too long away, like in 2 weeks' time, that taps into this intuitive wisdom. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes, we're just finalizing the dates and the speakers, but the New Consciousness Summit on the 17th and 18th no. We changed the date. The 19th and the 20th here in Australia, but the 18th, 19th over in Brazil and America. I love time zones. It's really cool when you're working back and forth, but it's at the end of next week, so be prepared. That one is being advertised at the moment, so keep your eye out for the New Consciousness Summit with Fernando, PhD coach from Brazil. This is going to be a really cool way to just tap in deeper to those psychic potentials and ways that we can be in that joy that we're talking about.
Oh, beautiful. Amazing. And folks, we've got a few more summits coming up. Our Mum Summit in October and our Youth Summit in November. Check out our website, www.awæcnianacademy.com. And we look forward to seeing you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Bye.